are we using AI and large language models? I think we're still kind of going through at the very beginning stages of this. Uh, one of the ideas is that this is going to replace that full spectrum analysis. That at some point, we are not going to have humans looking at things. Very far away from that, but what we do see is log parsing and that correlation, threat classification. You see automated actions being taken autonomously by these agents. So if we think about our main thrust, that initial couple of minutes or hours after a detection is to get to containment. We have agents, Gen AI, all of that, all coming together very quickly, isolating systems, potentially taking those kind of repeatable actions.
I want to welcome everybody that's joining. Looking forward to the conversation today. Feel free to keep the chat going over in the webinar chat. Happy to relay any questions or comments into the conversation as I can. But without Keith here today, I've got to keep my mind on helping host as well. You all know who I am, Dave Farrow, former CISO, Red Canary. Still trying to figure out what my new role is now that we are a Zscaler company. But along with me here is Gerry Johansen, who is a principal security solutions specialist here at Red Canary. Gerry, say a few words about who you are.
Hi, everybody. Gerry Johansen. Been in the industry a little bit. Really focused on a lot of the blue stuff, cyber threat intel, incident response, digital forensics, that kind of thing. Right now at Red Canary, as it says, I have probably one of the longest titles here. Work a lot on working with organizations, customers on really kind of keeping that left of bang, get that proactive incident response stuff taken care of.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today. We've got a bunch of stuff on the docket, so let's hop in. Let's hop to the next slide. Our agenda today is gonna be, we got a couple things in the news we're gonna talk about. We've also been getting a lot of feedback from folks that are regular listeners saying, can we talk about AI? I know we're not covering a whole lot of AI in the market these days. It's just an emerging idea, so we should probably talk about that a little bit. Anybody else getting tired of talking about AI? I think there's a lot to talk about here, so we're gonna start that topic up, teeing up some programming for a later time. But we got a few thoughts on that to share today. And then the meat of this is we're going to talk about incident response readiness, which is Gerry's specialty here at Red Canary. I'm really looking forward to talking about that. So next slide. So let's start with, whoops, not on that slide. Sorry, we don't have slides for the first two topics. Let's go back. Let's go back. So let's talk first about the Comcast breach. It's kind of a run-of-the-mill deal, as far as I can tell. The Medusa ransomware group is claiming that they've looted a whole bunch of stuff from Comcast. But the thing that jumped out at me was the listing of the stuff that they're posting as evidence that they've grabbed. So I'm going to read a couple things from this article from hackread.com, and I'll use this as a jumping board for some thoughts on this. To back its claims, Medusa's posted around 20 screenshots allegedly showing internal Comcast files. I'm like, oh, I wonder what they've got here, right? The group also shared a massive file listing 167,000 entries suggesting access to actuarial reports, product management data, insurance modeling scripts, and claim analytics. What jumps off the page to me there is claim analytics, insurance modeling scripts. Like what is this that they've? I don't link those things with Comcast. Like the next paragraph talks about SQL scripts related to auto premium impact analysis. I don't know anything about Comcast business, but that kind of feels to me like that might be someone's personal project that they looted. Who knows? What do you think about this, Gerry?
It's very interesting. I think in a lot of ways, it's that kind of it's not a second story, as I would say, not a second story job, it's more of a smash and grab. And I think they're just trying to figure out what's going to resonate with some sort of buyer, whoever that buyer is going to be. I don't know who's going to buy that. So I think this is just an example of that kind of smash and grab. They don't know what they're getting. They really don't know what they're going after, and I think it's indicative of that.
Yeah, that was the thing that jumped out. Is like who exactly are they holding up? Like why would Comcast care if this stuff got out? Like if anyone knows more about Comcast business, Chris in the chat saying it sounds like it could be a risk management department. I agree. But like whose risk are they looking at? And like is there really any financial value to this data? What's interesting to me about this is that, you know, as we trace the way these groups behave, and we look at, especially if you tie that back to the Verizon DBIR, that it becomes clear that more and more the purpose behind cyber attacks appears to be financial motivation more and more. And so, you know, you wonder if they're just grasping at straws, hoping that someone's going to look at this on the Comcast side and say, hey, we just can't afford the public exposure. And so maybe we'll pay it, but I would be surprised if they pay anything for that. Curious.
The sheer amount of data that was, I think it's just a tick over 800 gigs of data. You know, I think there's also this hope that they're going to be able to pull something out of that, you know, a tranche of emails or some sort of internal documentation that they're able to monetize. But even that, I think, you know, if it's streaming service that they're looking at, are you going to try to sell it to Hulu or Netflix? I mean, that just seems like you stole the Mona Lisa, and who's going to buy it? Because immediately everybody's going to know it's not something that you got, you know, legitimately.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and I know that 800 gigs, like that's a lot. If you like, if you're thinking about 800 gigs worth of hot dogs that you have to eat, that's a lot.
There's a lot of
Right. But in terms of data, it doesn't feel like that much anymore. I think about that in terms of like how many gigs of data were on a DVD, right? It's maybe a couple hundred movies worth of data, right? Like
yeah.
as data volumes go, it's not that big anymore. So I'll be curious to see if anything comes of that. But you know, it's just more evidence that you guys are out here looking to monetize things, which may or may not be monetizable. All right, let's move on to the postmark MCP. Gerry, you said you've got some experience around this. This one's interesting.
Well, it's kind of breaking into well, I would say what's old is new again is the first real backdoor, as you said, rightfully said. I think it's a great way to put it, where within the postmark MCP, it was basically an email forwarding line code that was basically snarfing as organizations were tying up their email systems. It was literally copying all of those emails and sending them to an email address. And it's just, I think it's really one of the tip of the iceberg kind of situation where this is really highlighting some of the inevitable issues that we're going to run into as we start to widely adopt a lot of these technologies. And again,
Yeah.
it fits into that risk management structure.
Yeah. So postmark MCP. Postmark is man, what's the Active Campaign is the company that owns it. They do marketing email, marketing email and AI stuff for like automated campaigns. The reason this was interesting to me is that as we move into agentic AI, like the MCP protocol is the way that you build these AI agents. You know, I'm not sure how, like, if I think about what the threat from postmark MCP is, like someone's sitting in the middle of your marketing email stream. I don't know how terrible that is, but it's a bad sign. It's a sign that MCPs and these publicly available models. This one was distributed through GitHub. These publicly available models are another, you know, they're another flavor of a supply chain attack. It underscores the need for us to be diligent around the open source tooling that we use. And it also underscores that the speed at which we're moving into agentic AI is going to make it a very juicy target, because people aren't going to have a lot of time to stop and think about what they're doing. There's a lot of pressure to move quickly. And so as you move quickly, it's easy to make mistakes. So check that out. It's an interesting article. I do want to take just 2 quick minutes to talk about a peek into what I've been reading around AI. We've gotten a lot of requests, people saying, can we talk about like security operations for AI? And, you know, in my job, the first question that I want to ask is like, what are we really talking about? What does good look like in terms of secure AI? And so I've looked up, I have a couple of articles or papers I've been reading. One of them is called the AI, the Artificial Intelligence Risk Management Framework from NIST. And it has a really helpful framework for thinking about what good looks like. And it proposes a set of properties for AI trustworthiness. There's 7 of them. I'll run through them real quick. The AI that is trustworthy is valid and reliable. It's safe. It's secure and resilient. It's accountable and transparent. It's explainable and interpretable. It's privacy enhanced, and it's fair with harmful bias managed. Right? That's really helpful for helping define what good looks like. The second thing that I've been reading is a paper out of UC Berkeley called A Taxonomy of Trustworthiness for Artificial Intelligence. And what it does is it actually layers, this taxonomy says, what does each of those properties of trustworthiness look like in each of the 7 steps of the AI lifecycle, of the development lifecycle? It's really helpful for us to put words to what we mean around those things. And it's helpful for us to come up with a common vocabulary for talking about what good looks like. And so I would encourage you to take a look at those if you're looking for a framework for answering the question, what would secure look like? Gerry, you have any thoughts on that around AI?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that touches on. You know, if we're kind of looking at, hey, overall, what do we really need to do as organizations? It's really kind of adopt some sort of guidelines. Specifically, you know, kind of pivoting into what I'm reading is OWASP has you know, a Gen AI incident response guide that they've recently released. Really kind of going through that. We're getting much more, I think, attuned to, hey, these tools are out here, our people are using them. How do we do this, for lack of a better term, with risk in mind? You know, understanding the risk of using these tools. But going back to even just that MCP discussion earlier, is you know, one of the things that we're seeing is from an IR perspective, it's very tough. Nobody would think to have a hypothesis that said, oh, maybe it's the MCP server that's pilfering this data. So as the speed gets faster, I think overall we're going to have to adopt methodologies that allows us to keep pace with that speed, but also address these risks essentially almost in real time. And it's going to be a very significant challenge.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, let's jump from that directly. Thank you for those thoughts. Let's jump directly into the incident response readiness, because we're running a little behind here, and I want to make sure that we cover the IRR guide here. Tell us about the IRR guide.
The IRR, okay, we're going to just call it the Incident Response and Readiness Guide. In our 3rd edition, this was a lot of Red Canary personalities worked on this, really putting it together, addressing some of what we were just talking about. What does it look like with the wide adoption of Gen AI, specific LLMs? How does that impact your incident response? Really understanding supply chain and third-party risks, and really differentiating those. That, you know, what does it look like? MCP, we've seen a lot of these kind of supply chains, and these risks really causing incidents. So things to think about as we start to work through there. The major part, what I really focus on, is how do we build a readiness program? I've been kind of an evangelist. Some individuals have said, hey, weren't you at CurlCon and earlier this year talking about this very thing? How do we get faster? How do we get better? Because it's really turned into this. When I first started in incident response 15 something years ago, it was how that happened to the other individuals, the other organizations. And I think a lot of organizations now are saying this could really happen to us.
Mm-hmm. Well, cool.
So how are we using AI and large language models? Just I think we're still kind of going through at the very beginning stages of this. Uh, one of the ideas is that this is going to replace that full spectrum analysis. That at some point we are not going to have humans looking at things. Very far away from that, but what we do see is log parsing and that correlation, threat classification. You see automated actions being taken autonomously by these agents. So if we think about our main thrust, that initial couple of minutes or hours after a detection is to get to containment. We have agents, Gen AI, all of that, all coming together very quickly, isolating systems, potentially taking those kind of repeatable actions. Uh, that's that adaptive and automated response. And then, where we are from a risk assessment. Can you tell me what, as opposed to having one or two people on your governance, risk, and compliance team, feeding Gemini, feeding ChatGPT, Grok, something of that nature, or your own LLM. Hey, here's what we're seeing from some conditions. What's our overall risk? And really kind of crafting language that's really going to help that kind of risk assessment, really kind of crystallize a lot of what you're saying. So there are obviously some benefits to incident response and overall readiness.
So yeah, I can see why LLMs are helping us with things like log parsing and correlation, right? Because the real innovation in that technology, the foundational innovation in that technology is the ability for machines to interpret natural language. So a lot of the work that we've had to do manually in the past to parse unstructured data or parse log data from various places, things that we could infer as humans based on seeing a log line that we would then have to codify for the robots. Like natural language processing helps remove a lot of that toil for parsing and correlation. But how is that really helping us with the automated threat classification? Is that really large language models that are helping with us with that?
It's largely based on and threat classification. I think it's this kind of gets into one of those. All right, are we 100% there? Are we 50% there? What's our error rate? How often does the LLM kind of throw off something? What it very well may be is it'll tell us this is a potentiality, a threat. So one of the things that's brought up in the guide is to say, these models can help with getting us our human eyeballs and gray matter on a specific condition, but it's not going to tell you, hey, Dave logged in at 3:30 in the morning. That's not within the band of normal behavior for Dave. So that may be, out of time sink or impossible travel. But still, at the end of the day, we're going to have to validate. Well, no, maybe Dave got up early in the morning to take a call with, our team in Germany or something of that nature. So it's helpful. I think the best way to put it is, as it says, it's helpful, but it's not the end all be all arbiter of,
Right.
It's going to say, yes, this is bad. It's really going to focus our energy there.
Right. Yeah, and I mean I love it for things like playbook development. There's so much of the response process that is pretty well settled, settled subject matter that you need to put in place at every program, and having to rewrite that from scratch each time as you stand up a new program is a lot of work, right? But as we're seeing in the comments channel, like there's a pretty healthy distrust of the output of LLMs. And that's been our philosophy here too, is that LLMs can do a lot of the initial lifting, like this context aware analysis. They can do a lot of the gathering of context and sort of pre-chewing of that data. But I think what we're going to find is that AI, one of its one of the big impacts on people's jobs is it's going to move us out of doing a lot of that initial toil and leave us with the job of checking its work. And
Absolutely. Yep.
and what I struggle with when I vibe code is that it is so fun to not have to do the toil.
Yeah.
That when it gets to the checking part, like I don't want to do that work. It's not the fun part. And so like I'll be very curious to see how we as people adapt to the change to where somebody has taken a lot of this toil off of our plate and our job is now to think critically about what we're seeing in front of us.
Yeah.
And I think that's just going to be an adjustment because like this is not the first time in human history when we've faced this. Like I don't grow my own food. And I still check to make sure it hasn't gone bad before I eat it. It's probably a terrible analogy, but it's sort of the way I see it.
I mean, it fits. It fits. And to that point, we talk about like as the last bullet, risk assessments is I think Gen AI or LLMs are going to be able to tell you what is a risk, but they're not going to tell you where that fits on acceptance. Does it really apply to your organization? You can feed it some data and say, hey, you're a GRC analyst, and here's all the failed logins for the last 30 days. What is our exposure? It'll give you that information. It's up to us, as I think you said, you have to go in there and make that determination. And do we offload it? Do we mitigate it? Do we just accept it? We're not going to get Gen AI is not going to be able to tell us that.
Right. I think everyone in the channel is leaning into this. Yeah, we got to check the AI's work, right? And I'm really curious. Maybe this is a poll for another day, or I'd love folks to drop their thoughts on this. But like, what is our responsibility as security practitioners for driving this culture change? That like, yes, we should be leaning into using AI, but we have a responsibility to check its work. And is this going to be something that becomes part of our security programs? I'll be curious what folks think about that. And yes, Mel's comment, you need all the humans to audit the quantity of data. Yeah, it is a huge problem.
Yeah.
So like we're never going to be able to check everything, but like we're going to have to find a way to check enough to mitigate the risk of things going really badly wrong. But yeah, we always we keep humans in the loop wherever we're using AI as well. What do you got next for us, Gerry?
Well, let's talk real quick. We touched on it, but really making sure that you are, as part of that planning, understanding what your supply chain risks are. As we saw with that MCP backdoor, what are your third-party risks? If you go back in antiquity, so to speak, to the Target breach or some of the other high-profile breaches, that they may have had a supply chain issue. But understand that that's really part of your incident response plan, is to understand these and be prepared for them as well. It's not just a phishing email that gets through. It's all of those organizations that have connections to your organization and what connections you have to them. And especially as we get into cloud and public cloud infrastructure, understanding where all of these fit together, pulling code and pushing it to Firebase. What does that look like from a supply chain or third party vendors that are doing some work for you?
Yeah, I think that it doesn't feel recent for a lot of folks, but I think for the incident response teams that have been working at the Drift incident from I don't know, it's probably 6 weeks ago, maybe at this point, that are still feeling this. That third party risk is like a super real issue. And like, one of the things that it's underscored for me is the need to have an incident response plan and to be ready and have your playbooks sort of well understood for rolling creds between systems. Like it's a bad day if if an adversary gets access to a system that has legitimate access to other creds. And so those things, that third party risk is I think even more pernicious than the supply chain stuff.
So we'll kind of keep going on here in terms of the planning. And what I like to kind of break this out from, and this is, obviously covered in the incident response and readiness guide, is really focus on kind of three core documents. You have your policy that gives you that 1 to 2 pages of here's how we do. This is who's got authority, who does what. Our incident response plan is a lot more in depth. And this is again where you can pull in some Gen AI and say, hey, I'm a medium-sized healthcare company. Give me the framework for an incident response plan. You still got to do a lot of work, but it does cut down there. And then specific procedures. And we talk a lot in the readiness side about all of the different components, and you see this in the right-hand column, of plan reviews, drilling your security operations internally or even externally, incorporating some tabletop drills, tabletop exercises, and then you want to get to a point where maybe annually, instead of just saying, hey, we got the tabletop exercise and we cross the list off, is really focusing on kind of the integrated purple team exercise where everything comes together.
So you do these response planning exercises and tabletops with a lot of customers, right?
Yes.
Have you seen that it's common for customers to have actually multiple different types of incident responses plans?
I see them have really kind of basically 3 layers to it. They generally will keep it in the same document, but you have your technical layer, what I call the intra-team layer. This is how various teams, technical, say your security ops, cloud ops, DevOps, all work as a team. A good one would then kind of transition to see how all of those teams work together. Really good book. It's not an IR book, but Team of Teams by General McChrystal talks about, hey, how do all of these various teams work together? So let's go back to a Gen AI conversation. Do you understand what your usage is there and how that works? And then finally, kind of that overall strategic how the leadership sees this effort going on. And it's one of the few times in a lot of organizations where leadership is really consultative and maybe informed, but they're not actually pulling cable or pushing buttons. So a tabletop exercise that hits all three, it's a lot of effort. It's a lot of bringing a lot of people together, but it does give you an appreciation for those kind of intra-team, inter-team, and then your overall tactical coordination.
Yep. Yeah, and that's I think that's all true. I would say that what I've observed is it's also valuable to think carefully about the different types of incidents that you have, because there are actually different playbooks that you execute based on whether like there was a cyber incident in the organization, something like a ransomware event or an endpoint being compromised. You have one set of plays that you run from that. You may have a different one if there's a critical bug found in a product that you're developing, and you have to roll the product team to fix that and communicate with your customers. There's a third kind if, like the drift incident, like I call these industry-wide incidents. Like if you wake up one morning and the internet is on fire with a named bug, there's a different playbook for that, because you have different types of response that your customers are expecting. And so there's a lot of value in stepping back and thinking about what the different types of things that can go wrong and who all needs to be involved and who has defined roles and responsibilities, and drilling that and being really crisp in whether you've got an operational incident or a cyber incident or a product security incident or an industry incident.
Yeah, and that's completely, that's at the heart of it. And a lot of the overall mantra that I like to say is you never want to do that in the real world for the first time. If you're doing it for the first time in an actual incident, it is going to be just a disaster amongst all of the others, because you get a lot of crosstalk, miscommunication, and it just really lengthens that amount.
So and there's also just the whole I don't know if this is the right term, but the whole fog of war deal, like when
Yes.
stuff's going sideways, if you haven't drilled it, the anxiety level just ratchets up going, oh man, I got to figure out what the next step is. This is a time when you want to know what the next step is. And you can focus your energy on taking those steps instead of trying to remember or decide what those are. And I think this is a thing that is easy to forget is we have our day jobs and we're looking at the controls that aren't fully deployed that need to be rolled out, the things that need to be maintained, the bugs that need to be patched, all of the keeping the lights on that we do as defenders on the wall. It's hard it feels like this is optional stuff, and it's frequently gets deprioritized from a funding perspective until you have an event and you realize like we didn't know quite what to do because we weren't drilling, right? And this is something you just want to have muscle memory around. So I appreciate you coming in today, Gerry, to talk with us about this topic. If anyone wants to hear more about how we think about incident response, like reach out to us. We'll get you set up with Gerry. But thanks all for coming in. Any last thoughts that you want to leave us with, Gerry?
No, I appreciate everybody coming in, and I think the best way to look at this is hopefully getting this information into everybody's hands and they can take it from there and run with it.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. We will see you next week. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.